What's up, guys? Today I'm joined with Cody, the book guy, who has sold 182 or 3,000, we're not really sure, in used books over the last year. And in this video, we're going to show you exactly how he did that, how you can get started as a bookseller as well, what his goals are for the future, and really how you can get started selling used books, what the opportunity is with used books. And he's doing some interesting things. You can start used books just going into thrift stores and stuff. That's a great way to get started. But you can also scale used books. If you look in the background of his video, you can see that he's got tons and tons of books. So we're going to talk a little bit about the nuance of books and really how to get started. So welcome to the pod, Cody.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
We're going to cut to the intro real quick.
Welcome to the Bookselling Monsters podcast. Hear the stories of how booksellers are crushing the game selling on Amazon and keep up with the latest strategies that are working in the book industry. Sit back, relax, and remember, if you truly try and work really hard, you will make a ridiculous amount of money selling on Amazon.
That's
But
true.
you got to actually try. You got to actually put the effort in. This shit is not easy. But today we're going to talk about some strategies to help you guys make money. So welcome, brother. Do you want to get started and tell people a little bit about your backstory and how you got into all this?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's kind of a weird one. I was scrolling through TikTok it was over 3 years ago. A guy popped up. I don't know
That's
if
how
you
you
know
know
him.
something's good about to happen. When you're scrolling TikTok.
I've always worked for people my whole life, and I hated the fact that I know what I was making was not even a fraction of what I was bringing to the table for whatever job I had. I've always had like an entrepreneurial spirit. When I was in college, I sold Magic cards, Magic the Gathering. That's kind of what paid for my mortgage,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Um, but when I was scrolling through TikTok one day in 2020, a guy named the Money Badger is what his
Yep.
name was. I don't know if you're familiar with him or
Yep.
not, but
William.
but yeah,
I met
William.
up with him years ago in Nashville. We went out before he even blew up on TikTok and all that.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything from him really in a while, but
He still posts. He's still active.
okay, good, good. But
Yeah.
anyway, he kind of got me into checking it out, and I just started watching some YouTube videos, and I was like, it's pretty easy to get into. I mean, if you go in, download Scout IQ, use their basic triggers, you can start finding good stuff. You're gonna hit a lot of trash, and you're gonna send in a lot of trash, but you're also still gonna be making money even if you're sending in some trash.
So can you talk about what you mean by like what Scout IQ is and what you mean by sending stuff in? Because people watching this probably have no idea about FBA and they
Okay.
don't really know what Scout IQ is or what it does.
Yeah, sure. So Scout IQ is just a sourcing software. It lets you go out to a thrift store. You can pull out your phone and scan the back of a book with a barcode, and it'll tell you green, good, red, bad. That's the basics of it. Now it's definitely way more technical than that if you want to try and scale the business up. But that's what I did for probably 9 months. I scanned with the barcodes, and if it was green, I sent it in. If it was red, I just
Mhm.
left it alone.
And you're just were you mainly hitting up thrift stores or were you doing libraries too, estate
I
sales?
just thrift stores. It was just thrift stores when I first started. I actually didn't really do much with Goodwills. I stuck more to like local stores because I mean it was the difference between 50 to 75 cents a book to where Goodwill, at least at the time, I mean, it was like minimum, at least in my area, $2 per book. And
Mhm.
I was trying to taste the waters. I wasn't trying to, really get heavily into it. And then after a few months, I hit the buy box, which is, Amazon. You click the buy it now button, and you're the one that gets that sale. And I just started seeing thousands and thousands of dollars in sales, and I was like, I've got to get into this hard. So I stopped the work that I was doing then, and I started cherry picking, which, if you're not familiar with that term, is just going through the thrift stores, finding the good stuff, and leaving behind the bad. And that worked for a while. It just was really hard to scale because when you're doing that, unless you're willing to drive hours away, you're kind of at the mercy of the store. And when they're willing to put in new inventory, a lot of them, they'll let the book sit on the shelves without putting anything new up there for weeks or months sometimes, just because it's not one of their main sources of income. From my e- over the past few years, I've learned that books really, they don't make a lot of money on them. They really don't even like dealing with them at all, which is kind of where I got my idea to start reaching out to these places and saying, "Hey, look, I'll give you guys a reasonable price. I'll come in and I'll buy all the books that you have in the back of your rooms," which there was not a single thrift store I've ever talked to that didn't have at least, when I first started, 25 plus boxes of books just stacked up or piled up or thrown around somewhere in the back. And they were happy, like they'd be happy probably if I were to have taken them for free, but I wanted to keep that relationship. I wanted to really build something with them so that they called me. They're like, "Hey man, somebody just dropped off 50 boxes of books. You want to come pick them up?" Absolutely. Be there, come go through everything. And the beautiful part about that is you're not fighting over these books. You're not having to worry about, "Oh, well, did somebody go through these? Oh, well, maybe somebody hit this right before I did." No, you're it. Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, there's potential for maybe somebody to drop their duds off. I've never had that happen. I've never picked up somebody's duds from a thrift store before, but I guess that is an option.
Yeah. So what did you get up to in sales just doing cherry picking?
I it's hard for me to remember. It's been a few years back, but I think that on a monthly basis, on sales wise, it was getting close to like 6 or 7,000, in
And you're probably
sales.
operating at what, a 30, 40, 50% margin? Do you know?
Yeah, well, at that time it was it was a higher margin. I had higher, or I'm sorry, lower margins because I was paying more for these books than I am buying them in bulk. But it was roughly 43 to 45% is what it was. Now it's right at about 50 to 55%.
hmm And now that you're doing bulk, can you kind of explain that to people, like how you landed that relationship and how it looks different than cherry picking?
Yeah, I mean it's all based on, from my experience, just being able to talk to people, being kind and providing value. Because if you're not providing value to these places, what's the point in them calling you over anybody else? Sweat equity is the hardest part about what I do, because you're going through and you're carrying these books in boxes or in totes or however you're doing it at the time, loading them up, stacking them up, putting them in your car or in your truck or whatever you have, and bringing them to your shop or maybe your storage unit, however you need to start out doing it, and going through them that way. But it's definitely not easy. You get a when you're doing the cherry pick method, you get the AC from being inside the store. But the other way
hmm
around, especially in Georgia, I mean, right now it's like 100 degrees outside almost every single
Yeah.
day. So like you're feeling it every time, and like that's why I say that to me is the hardest part about what I do. Because
hmm
to be quite frank, if you can get everything set up with your Amazon accounts, with your repricers, it kind of runs itself for the most part. I mean, obviously there's things you have to do to kind of keep things flowing in the right direction, but I think that's the easiest part of doing this business.
Right. So I know you got a little screen share. Do you want to kind of show us a little bit? Maybe start with that Scout IQ screen share and let complete beginners know, or people who are kind of like getting excited about the opportunity. They've started out, but I mean, we know, especially like today versus in the past, you can make a lot more mistakes in 2023 selling books than like 3 or 4 years ago because the
Absolutely.
removal fees are higher, long-term storage fees are higher. So I know you got some good stuff for us. So if you want to kind of explain like what Scout IQ is, why is it turn red, why is it turn green, and like a lot of people get overwhelmed with this, but maybe you can break it down in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. So to put it as simple as I can, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos of people talking about this stuff, and I'm trying to bring something to the table that I feel like isn't really talked about. I think there's a lot of great information out there, but I also think some of these smaller, more nitpicky things are also just as important for scaling your business. So starting with the Scout IQ, obviously you can see the left side is red, the right side is green. Left side would be a dud, right side would be a winner. You can see at the top left of each one, it shows what your profit margins would be. This one is just an example of what, when you're scanning, always be watching what you're doing. Okay. So when you put something into Scout IQ, you can either scan the barcode or you can put in the ISBN number, which is usually behind the first cover page or in front of the first cover page of the book. When I did that with this specific book, like this one was actually today I did that. Uh, it's a Stephen King book, and I put it into Scout IQ. If you look at the bottom left of the picture, the first picture on Scout IQ, that's not the same book. So what I did was I pulled up the Amazon Seller app. You can click the top right for the camera, take a picture of the front of the book that you have, and it'll find that listing based off that picture versus based off the ISBN. Then I copied the Amazon's ASI ASIN, which is basically how Amazon keeps track of everything, all of their inventory. Put that over into Scout IQ, and it shows that it's actually a $45 profit book. These are it's one of those things where you could have made 60 cents sending that to Sell Back Your Book, which is a buyback company, or you could have sent that into Amazon and made some really solid profit off of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what constitutes, like, when you see sell back your book,
hmm
when do you send to sell back your book versus to Amazon?
Well, I send it there's two different things that make me decide to send to Sell Back Your Book. If it's close enough to my profit margins. So if I'm going to be making $1 on the book and Sell Back Your Book is going to give me 85 cents instead, I'm probably sending it to Sell Back Your Book.
And that's
Just
money in the
because,
bank. Like,
yeah,
they're going to pay cash. And so
yeah,
if you send anything to sell back your book, that's money being paid to you like within a month.
hmm
Whereas if you send it to Amazon, even if you see $100 profit on Scout IQ, that's not guaranteed. That book
yeah,
could never sell potentially, and you could pay
absolutely.
$2 to have it removed. So just because Scout IQ says it's profitable doesn't mean it's actually going to end up profitable at the end of the day.
Yeah. And again, this is just an example. This isn't always the case. If you scan a book and you see it's one cover, just because it's a dud doesn't mean finding the right book is going to be a winner. But in my experience, if Sell Back Your Book is making an offer on it, I'm always going to go back and check and look for the right edition of it, because regardless of the reason that they buy it, sometimes that goes into Sell Back Your Book's pocket instead of yours. But
Mm-hmm.
going back to the other reason I would send a Sell Back Your Book is condition. So I do bulk and I send pallets to Sell Back Your Book, and with pallets they are much more lenient on conditions. For books, I've never really sent a box before. It wasn't really, not that it's not worth your time to do it sending in boxes, but with how much I was go 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 all the time, and how many books I was going through and getting, I didn't really have the time to sit there and box up stuff for Sell Back Your Book. But now,
Mm-hmm.
if I've got a book and it's got some writing in it that I'm like, it's a little too much for what I care about, I'll probably pop it into Sell Back Your Book.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Makes sense. So what is your path if you had to tell a complete beginner, a
Mhm.
younger version of yourself, to get to 100K in sales as quickly as possible as a bookseller? What would you do?
You just can't stop, man. It's when you get that first couple months in and you start seeing the profit, and you try and I can relax. No, you can't relax. When you stop and or when you get complacent with where you're at, you're just going to stay in the same numbers. You're not going to be able to scale. And the mistake that I still make to this day is get help, man. Get help. When you can afford to have help, do it, because it's going to do nothing but grow your business. Like, if you can have somebody there that's able to load your books around, or that's able to hell get a alternate account and have them go and scan for you, whatever it might be, when you can afford to do that, make it happen, because it's going to allow you to put that time into things that are going to allow your business to grow faster.
Mm-hmm. And if somebody wants to go the route for bulk books,
hmm
what do they need to do? Like, how do they land a bulk account?
I think from my experience has been super easy, but I feel like I'm really personable with people. Like, I can relate to people even if I've never met them. And you just tell them what you do. Be like, hey, I sell books. Don't lie to people. Tell them you sell books. Make them. I offer anywhere from $3 to $5 a box/tote of books.
And what type of people are you talking to? Like, you talking
The thrift store,
librarians, thrift
thrift.
stores?
That's where I would start. I would 100% start with thrift stores because there's, I mean, unless somebody's already hit that place and that's their connection, I promise you they have books somewhere. I personally, if you're going to do the bulk side, the way I do it, avoid your big thrift stores like your Goodwills, stuff like that, because they already have every ounce of that monetized in every direction they can. These other places, mom and pop stores, they don't know how to do this stuff. They don't even want to do this stuff. The stuff's taking up space for the couch that they're going to sell in a week, that they want to sell for $175 or whatever it might be. And like I said before, you want to provide value to them. You want to tell them, hey, I will come in, I will take every single one of these out of your way. You're not going to say, oh, well, this one's torn up, I'm not going to take it. Oh, well, you're going to take all of them and you're going to give them some money for it. And I've never met a place. I've had some places where they're like they want a little bit more, but I just tell them that's fine. You go ahead, and if you can find somebody, I totally respect that. And they call me back every time because nobody wants to do it, man. No, no, unless they're another person selling books. Even then, a lot of people aren't willing to put in the sweat equity to make something
Mhm.
like this happen. But your margins are insane, man. When you do it this way, I mean, you're talking about every book that's a winner costing you anywhere from on average when you do the math and break it down, 10 to 15 cents a book. That's what you're really paying for some of these things, and that's you can't find that in any other business with
How are you
any other product.
keeping, like, so what are you paying for, like, warehouse or storage? And what are you paying for people to, like, actually go through the books? Because those are essentially, like, that's your overhead. Because
Hmm.
you're getting the book so cheap. In a book business, it's never really about the cost of the book because it's basically free. So
Right.
then the cost of the book essentially becomes what you're paying for labor and what you're paying for storage. So can you talk about those two things in your business and how you try to minimize that?
Yeah. Well, the only thing that I have to pay for is my internet and power bill, along with obviously the services like Scout IQ, my repricer, go-to lister as well. Um, so because I'm fortunate enough to there's a I call it my mini warehouse. This is a smallish building that's behind my property. I went through and I purchased it a year and a half ago. It was all a part of one land, and I got it combined. It was split up, and I got it combined into one. But I pay basically like $100 a month for internet power. So I'm fortunate in that sense. If
Yeah,
I
that's key, man. I kind of like when I did bulk, I had $300 in storage units each month, and then had to pay $300 for a truck each
yeah,
time. How are you transporting this stuff? Are you renting a Penske or U-Haul, or are they delivering it?
it depends on the size of the pickup. If I've got a let's see, like a library sale, and they're like, hey, can you come pick up everything after the sale? I'm renting a truck because it's
Hmm.
going to be a
And
massive
what's that
amount of
run you?
books.
What kind of truck are you getting? Lift
You
gate,
use
non-lift gate?
I don't get a lift gate. I don't really I
Lift
if
gates
I
will instantly double or triple the cost.
yeah.
Avoid a lift gate at all costs.
Hold on a second. I think my camera just
We can still
shut.
hear you.
Okay, cool. Um anyway, the when you get a U-Haul, you're going to have the ramps anyway.
I would try and
So
refresh your camera though. See if you can maybe
let's see.
we miss your
Hold on a
beautiful
second.
face.
Oh,
There we
there
go.
it is. There it
Boom, you're
is.
back.
Okay. Um, so when you get a U-Haul, I tend to get the 12. 12 usually fits almost any kind of pickup you're doing, unless it's massive.
And
Like
that's
I'm,
dirt cheap too, right? What's that
yeah.
run you?
It usually like, I mean, if you bust butt and you really get it all done in one day, you can get it done for like 75,
Yeah.
$80.
And then
And
what about
now
the stuff you're getting from thrift stores?
the
What
stuff I get from thrift stores, I have a dump trailer and I have a Ford pickup truck.
okay.
So I utilize both of those.
Gotcha.
Usually,
That's nice.
most of the time, the Ford truck handles it. The dump truck is just or the dump the dump trailer. Sorry, is what I use if it's like going to be a little bit bigger, but I don't want to deal with renting. something,
Mhm.
and the weather has to be nice for you to make something like that happen.
Right.
Use
Yeah,
the
yeah.
truck
So
or
yeah, so
anything.
you are keeping your costs pretty low. And then what about
Yeah,
labor? You're putting a lot of sweat equity
yeah,
in right now?
yeah. It's me. The only help that I get really is my wife. I've got a wonderful wife who helps me with the listing.
That'll keep your
Um,
profit margins high, man.
yeah, man, it's great, and like she works full time and she still helps me. She's awesome. And she wanted me to tell you that thank you for GoToLister because she's like it puts Excel list like so far in the trash. She's completely forgot all about it. So
Making me
she
blush
loves it.
over here, man.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit more about that because you did come from Accelerlist to
Hmm.
GoToLister.
Yep.
Obviously, I made GoToLister for a reason. I wouldn't have made it if I thought everything in the market was perfect. So what made you make that switch and how's it helped your business?
Well, with Excel I was it is sort of user friendly compared to others out there.
Yeah, the
But
Accelerlist was created for booksellers
yeah,
because Inventory Lab sucked for booksellers. Inventory Lab kind of sucks in general with their user interface. It's ugly, it's slow. If you use Inventory Lab to list books, you're literally going to take you forever. It's like, and then if you use Accelerlist, it'll be faster. But if you use GoToLister, it's the fastest.
yeah, yeah. So, well, that it's kind of you've kind of merged the two different softwares that she had to use when she was doing the listing for me. So the way she would do it was she would scan it under Palette IQ to verify and make sure everything looks right, the pricing and everything was right. Then she'd have to go back to Excel list, then type in the profit or what she wants to list it under, and then have to go back in and see, oh wait, is there an Amazon listing FBA already? If there's not, then it does all that for you.
Yeah,
It's
dude, you're
you
gonna love what's coming out in the next week too. So like he's talking about smart pricing. GoToLister has smart pricing where we automatically price it at the highest price possible to make you more profit. So like the fourth highest FBA offer, fourth lowest. A lot of times it's like $3 or $4 or $10 extra profit that you can have. And every other software would just price it at the buy box price, but we price it higher. So in the next week or two, what we're going to do is we're going to display you all the prices and then we'll show you which one we selected. And we'll probably even tell you how much more profit you're making off of that. So instead of just kind of like trusting the software to do the right thing, you'll also be able to see a display of what's happening.
yeah.
So that'll give some clarity on that.
Hmm. I'm stoked, man. Well, like I said, I mean, you when I say that it's 10 times faster, I'm not being dramatic. It is so much faster for her because she is very nitpicky in the sense of she wants everything done like 100% right. And it's really hard to mess up when you're using GoToLister. It really is. So it's been a game changer for us. And the other benefit that hasn't happened yet but will happen is whenever it comes to training more employees when we get down the line, so much easier to try and train somebody to use that versus any other software. Because like I said, I mean, obviously you have to have an understanding on how things work. But if whoever scanned the books and put them there ready to be sent in, if they knew what they were doing, it's going to be hard to mess it up.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So a little backstory on why I created it so simply.
Mhm.
In 2020, I was selling a book selling course called the Book Business Blueprint, and we were running Facebook ads. And for some reason, actually, it's not even like a mystery. On Facebook, there's a bunch of like older women, and so the majority of people who would enter my course were women between the age of like 40 and 60. And so explaining to them technology and how to use Scout IQ, any listing software, Amazon in general, it was just so difficult to get them results. And so when I made GoToLister, I started it in 2020. I'm like, let me make this as simple as possible. Like I do not want them to have to, figure anything out, or like I do not want a bunch of questions. Like I tried to make it. My mom actually uses it, so that's a good test. If my mom's able to use it, then that means it's good. So
Right.
that's why we created it. Like literally, if you look at GoToLister, there's not that many buttons, and so
No.
it's really easy to train employees to use.
Yeah.
So
And the red flags that it pops up are always helpful versus when you're going through Excel list. The red flags that pop up just make no sense whatsoever most of the time.
mhm.
So yeah, it's been great. But that was just a slight sidetrack. But that's been a just in the past few weeks, it's made the time, the amount that she's able to send in when she's able to sit down and help, I mean, easily 10 times the amount that she would have before. It's nuts.
100%. So I know I know you got some pro tips for people when it comes to like the nuance of book selling. You have a little presentation put together. I want you to get to that, but before we get to that, we've already talked about GoToLister a little bit, guys. But if you haven't already, go to gotolister.com and sign up for your free trial. Here's a little bit of feedback we got from Steve, aka Rake and Profit.
The reason I love the new gotolister.com is because I can scan faster than I ever.
That's the wrong one. Here we go.
The number one thing I love about it most is it helps me list and process my items that much faster. And as you know, if you want to grow your Amazon business, speed is the name of the game. If you're thinking about selling on Amazon or you're already selling and you want to be able to grow your business quicker, definitely check out GoToLister. Appreciate you, Avery, for creating the software, and it's really helping me grow my business. Much love.
All right, let's dive into this little presentation you got here. I'll throw it back on the screen.
I wouldn't say much of a presentation other than a bunch of pictures slapped together.
Well, I know you have some good ideas too. You were telling me, you think you have some things that maybe a lot of booksellers don't consider, so we could dive into that as well.
Absolutely. It's not that I know for a fact they don't. It's something that people just underestimate that. But I'm going to start with something that I find to be a lot easier than that, just to see. Book sets. Okay, book sets are great for Amazon when it comes to figuring out which ones are good. It's going to take you some time. You got to do a little bit of research. There's websites you can go to, find out what their best. Go straight to Amazon, find out what the best book sets are that sell. But especially if you're doing bulk, the way I am, you start collecting these books. So like you see at the very top, this is the Left Behind series. It's one that I see all the time here. The book itself is basically worthless, but if you can wind up getting all 16 volumes, you've got almost $80 right there. That's your profit margins for that. So book sets are super great. Another example of that's like Hunger Games, right? It's not a crazy amount of money, but you're talking about sell back your book. Maybe even if they bought all of them, you might make $1. Well, you turn that into $33. There's so much money to be made. Harry Potter, obvious. These are obvious ones, but there's so many more out there. Me personally, the way I do it is I just have shelves for the book sets that I do collect and try and complete, and just set them aside. When I get it, it gets built up into the complete set and I ship it in. Now, you keep in mind too, one thing I have noticed that I'm cautious and I'm aware of is box sets. So you can see like this one, this is the Harry Potter box set. When you create the listing for it, I always specify that it's not in the box, that it doesn't have the box in there with it, because some people, they'll buy that as a gift and they want it to be, a full thing complete. Now, I know people who will also list different brands of whoever created the book, different publishers inside one set. Me personally, I don't do it. I like having, I know it's a nitpicky, but I like everybody being happy at my store. I've got 100% feedback and I try to keep it that way all the time. So, if you see, I don't have an example in front of me, but there's different publishers that can make the Harry Potter series, right? So you could have 2 from one publisher and 3 from another. I don't put those together. You can. People I've talked to said they've never had any issues with that, but I just try and, do everything what I consider to be the right way. So that building sets, especially if you're doing bulk, I think it's a no-brainer. Another thing too, when you're buying from these thrift stores or from an estate sale company or anything like that, always be looking for there to be already complete book sets, just not in a box or something. A lot of the times when you find one Harry Potter book, you're going to find the other 6 Harry Potter books all together, and try and build that up, versus sending
Can you
that
talk a little bit about what software this is, Palette IQ, and when people should use Palette IQ versus Scout IQ?
Yeah, that can kind of lead us directly into the next point for me. So one thing that a lot of people, I think, mess up on when they get into doing bulk is they only go for books that have a barcode or they have an ISBN number. Anything that doesn't have a barcode or an ISBN, they just pass on. Now, this has been, for me personally, it's been a huge learning curve. It starts off like you're going up that hill slow because you're scanning these books, you're taking the pictures, or if they don't even have a cover, you're going to Google and typing in the name of the book, the author, the publisher, the date, like all sorts of like niche things you have to do to make something like that happen. But for me, what I've found, and I've done the math on this, non-barcode or ISBN books make up about roughly 30 to 35% of all of my inventory, but they also make up 50% almost of my entire profit. Non-barcode books. And I know bulk sellers that if there is no barcode on them, they ship them out to recyclers. And they, like, that's 50%. Like, don't get me wrong, if you have the labor and the amount of inventory constantly coming in, you can afford to do stuff like that. But if you're having to go through and, pick from these thrift stores, pick from these estate sales and pull all this stuff, me personally, I'm going to monetize everything I can from it. Uh, you're not only getting the money, but you're gaining knowledge from it at the same time. You'll start to see patterns with books that you're like, oh, I just scanned this magazine of uh, canning food and it was a winner. Oh, wait, there's another magazine that's that same publisher that same company. I'm gonna don't go through and make sure that one's one as well. And in that slideshow, I've got plenty of examples to show. But the reason for Palette IQ for me is because they're the only place out there that gives you the ability to print out a barcode. So whenever I find a book, I start off with my phone. I can either, if it has a cover for me to scan with the Amazon Seller app, find it, copy over the ASIN, I can paste that into Scout IQ. And if you're not familiar, Scout IQ and Palette IQ are obviously owned by the same people. They have the ability to, when you paste something into Scout IQ, it can automatically populate that into Palette IQ. So it's a little time saver, but every time saving moment makes a difference. So you paste it over in there, and then if it's a good book, you can go ahead and click print, and it'll print out a barcode that when you whatever listing software you're using, when you scan that in, it will read that as whatever Amazon store number is.
When did they make that? I didn't even know that they had
It's
that.
been that way since I started back in 2021. That's when I started.
That's pretty clutch.
Dude, it's if you're going through and doing non-barcode books, it is necessary because I started doing bulk with just Scout IQ and Scoutly. I use Scoutly as well before, um, but the problem is you would go through and you get all these books and then you'd be like, shit, what was this book? How, do I have to go? You have to go back and find it again, or you have to sit there and write up whatever the ASIN is and hope that you didn't mess up when
Right.
you're writing it down. It's really it's necessary in my opinion to
Yeah.
have something like that.
Talk a little bit about what else Palette IQ does, because when I think of Palette IQ, I think of
Mhm.
it connecting to wholesalers and vendors. Do you
Yeah.
use that part of it that much, or do you just send everything to sell back?
So I did use Zifit for a small time period, but again, it's not a tiny space, but I have limited space. And I was sending out, 5 or 6 Gaylords of Sell Back Your Book before I ever hit one Gaylord of Zifit. And I was like, it's just the amount of space that it takes up. I might have made an extra $50-$100, but I'd much rather have that square footage over that extra $50-$100 a month that I would have had using them over. But there's so many options. I mean, the only two that are integrated with them that, unless something has changed, is just Zifit and Sell Back Your Book. They have the pop-ups for the other buyback companies like Piggy or all the other ones, but they're not integrated. So you have
You know who
to
else
go
just integrated with them recently?
who?
Grind hard, well done, sir, and welcome to the freaking Well Show.
StreetKidInventory.com, baby. We just integrated with Palette IQ a few weeks ago. So if you guys are Palette IQ or Scout IQ users and you scan a book you're restricted in, we will actually tell you how much profit you would make if you sent the book to us and if we sold it on Amazon for you. we've been through hell and back, restricted inventory over the last 4 years. I'm actually like, I can't even sell on Amazon anymore, primarily because of this business model. like it really, I poured my heart and soul into this business, guys, and it's still alive to this day. But anyway, that's a long story. But basically, if you have a restricted book that you can't sell, you can send it to us. And the price you see on Pallet IQ or on Scout IQ is the price that you would likely get a payout for from us after the 50-50 split, after shipping to us, and after shipping to Amazon. So we're factoring in all those fees. So that's just a little plug for that service right there.
Sweet. I didn't even know that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's super fresh. Just came out. So yeah. I didn't know that. I thought they had more vendors. I thought they had like 5.
No, like I said, they will populate the information from the others, but unless something has changed, the only 2 that are integrated to where like you scan it and it's already connected to them is just Zip It and Sell Back Your Book.
Gotcha.
Now I know they had I don't know if it's still up, but their pallet program where you're able to fill up a pallet of FBA books and they sell that pallet.
They don't have that anymore. They used to.
Yeah, I tried that for a little bit. It wasn't for me, but I could see how it could be useful for some people.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, for sure. What other tips you got for people? I know you said you got some creative strategies. Anything else that you think booksellers aren't doing, or if you want to elaborate on what you've already said?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if we can pull up the slide, I just want to show a little bit of an example real quick of what I'm talking about with these.
Let me,
these just as reference, these are some more examples real quick of what I meant with the ISBN or the barcode does not always mean that that's what that book is. Pay attention to what you're scanning. You see this one right here, it's a much newer edition than the one that's associated in that picture that I just now realized has my big fat foot in it as well. So you're welcome for that. But yeah, anyway. So let's move on. These are some of like outliers from the past year of just really good non-barcode books. I think our beautiful faces are covering up the tooth carving manual book.
Yeah, one second. Let me I can adjust this flow.
There you go. So I mean, there's insane stuff that you would never ever even think about. One thing that I think I'd like to just make note of is you can see what the books had sold for here, but the How to Make $100,000 book, I'd found the paperback, which is the bottom one or the top one, the very first time, like a year ago, and then I saw the hardback version and I knew it was great. But you want to know the crazy part? This is why I say you always pay attention. You scan the ISBN for that book, it pulls up the South Beach Diet. And so Back Your Book was going to offer me 15 cents.
South Beach Diet, the most profitable book that exists on Amazon.
So if you're not paying attention, that's the kind of stuff that can happen. And again, sure, if you're a major big bulk operation, that stuff doesn't matter at the end of the day. You can have those kind of slip ups and you're still going to do great. But if you're doing what I do, which is a solo operation, you gotta be diligent with all this stuff. There's plenty more examples I'll show you guys, but stuff that you never would have thought of. The tooth carving manual. It took me a little bit of time to research it. It sat there for maybe a month or two. You see the rank on it right there, 2.3 million. If you're not familiar with what ranks are with books, at least for me, I try to keep most of what I send in, if it's common stuff, under a million, preferably under 750,000. But when you find books that the ranking only means something when there is enough supply to meet the demand that's out there. If there's no supply, the rank doesn't really doesn't really help you with what when you're scanning it. You have to go through, get familiar with Keepa. If you don't know Keepa, I'm not going to teach you because that ain't me, but I know how to use it. I know Caleb has plenty of Keepa YouTube videos. I'm sure you do as well. I don't know if you've gone through that much.
Yeah, they're just type in Keepa, Roma the Roamer, Keepa the Book Flipper, Keepa Joji Davenport. There's tons of good Keepa videos out there for booksellers.
Yeah, the reason that I say that the rank doesn't matter is if you have a book that has sat and there's not been a single one listed into Amazon for 9 months, that doesn't mean it's a bad book. That just means nobody has sent that book in.
Yep.
It could mean it's a bad book, but it doesn't It doesn't guarantee that, and that's what these types of books are. Um, it's really important to go through it and learn Keepa. Especially when you see a book and you're like, there's like no Amazon listing available. Oh, those are where I'm like, oh, let me dig in because I know this could be something really,
Yep.
really good.
That just goes for all inventory, not just books,
Mhm.
anything, and these scanning apps aren't going to tell you to purchase it.
Yeah,
You're
they
gonna
don't
have
know.
to. Yeah, they don't know because they're just going off the data that Amazon gives them.
Mhm.
And if there is no data, they can't make a choice. And if there's no data, that actually might be the best case scenario because it means there's no competition.
100%. That's just as a little pat on my own back. The book, the $100,000, at least as far as Keepa is concerned, there was no listings when I got that one up. I've been the one who has sold that book for the highest price on Amazon in Keepa data history. So just because nobody had it up at the moment, so I just left it up.
Heck yeah.
It sold within a week. So learn how to read that stuff, man. It will be your best friend when it comes to doing stuff like this. It'll help you understand, like, okay, well, there's no listings. You can go back and see, oh, well, when there was a listing, it sold within a week. And it also helps with understanding, sure, there may be a book that you scan and it's a long tail book and it pops up like, oh, you can make $250. No, that's just because it's not a popular book. Somebody put it up there because they thought it might be worth something. When it sold for $6. It's just that nobody had put a listing up, and this person thought they were clever, and so or a repricer decided, well, there's no competition. Let's bump this
Yep.
sucker up. So there's a lot of that. This is a big thing that I try and specialize in. The knowledge, when you first start doing it, it can be overwhelming. You can be like zoning out trying to, but you're learning a lot when you do it, and the more you do it, the more you know what's actually good. When you're scanning stuff, you can see something, you're like, oh, I know. You can be like, I guarantee you this is a good book. It may be a long tail, whatever, but this is where I try to, again, it makes up almost 50% of what my profits are, period. These types of books. This is what keeps my ASP, my average sell price. I consider it to be pretty high most of the time. I mean, my minimum ASP is like $15 on a yearly basis. So
Can we talk a little bit about merchant fulfilled versus FBA?
Yeah.
What percent of these are merchant fulfilled versus FBA? And kind of for complete beginners out there, I know we're getting deep into stuff, so most people listening now are probably more advanced, but if you just want to briefly explain the difference between the two.
Yeah, well, I assumed that this whole thing was going to be FBA, so I only focused on FBA books. Nothing in here is merchant fulfilled. But the way I handle merchant fulfilled is specifically long tail books. With how Amazon is set up now, it's unless it's a long tail book with no competition or very little competition, if you send it into FBA, you're probably going to be, hit with some long-term storage fees, or you're going to have that stuff removed, something along those lines. So I only focus on books that it's like, hey, if I can make at least $25 or whatever it might be, yeah, there's a little bit of competition for it. It goes on to the merchant fulfilled shelf. But if there's no competition, or I'm like, hey, there's no FBA competition, a lot of the times, even on like you see here, the tooth carving, it was when I listed 2.3 million, I still sent it into FBA. So that's one of those things that where I say it's all based on Keepa, the knowledge of Keepa. I I wish I could sit here and be able to give you the exact path to follow, but each book that you deal with is going to be a different situation when it comes to these types of books. These aren't the types of books that are selling, 20 times a day on Amazon. These are the types of books that are selling once a month or once every couple of months. So it's really hard to kind of put something like that to it. It's where I say go through, learn Keepa, understand what it means when a book actually sells, be able to see that dip, when that dip's there, that's when that sell's hitting, and you can kind of work through it from that. But yeah, that would be my number one recommendation for if you're going to go into the bulk side, like how I do it. Again, you could have a completely different operation than me where you pay nothing for books. You just go in and offer them the ability to pick them up, and you don't want to deal with these, that's fine. There's answers for that as well. I'll get further into that. But like I said, everything that I'm showing you here, all sorts of stuff that you would never think. Like there's a KitchenAid mixer manual. You wouldn't think that would be one. There's a knock meal plan book. Himmels, like all sorts of Vitamix books. I've tried to find some unique stuff that was you wouldn't really imagine. Jello, desserts. If you think you know it's going to be good or bad, you're wrong, because the market decides what's good and what's bad, not you. So yeah, I did that answer your question, sort of?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
okay.
makes sense. Any other good tips, tricks, golden nuggets for us?
Well, I would recommend, if you're not going to do that stuff, reach out to Max. I know you know Max.
Yep. And that's
if
his
you're
Instagram's the same. So if you guys type this in on Instagram, he's great with rare books and stuff.
yeah, or unique books. It doesn't like it. He is an amazing resource to have if you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the time. Even if you do, like there's going to be good books that they don't have that aren't on Amazon, right? So like just for instance, like you're not going to find a family heritage book on Amazon. You're not going to find a 1942 yearbook of X and X college. And there's going to be some books that you don't want to list on Amazon. If you find, a $3,000 book, I'm probably sending that to Max, just because I want to make sure that this stuff is done right, done the right way. And with Amazon, somebody could take that book and send a brick back to Amazon, and you could wind up being screwed over. So that's where he has been an immensely valuable resource for me in my business. And if you're going through, even if you're just going to estate sales, or even if you're just doing thrift stores and you see unique stuff, if you don't have Max on your side, you're losing out on money. So that's kind of that's either the alternative or the addition to what I do.
Yep.
I
I'll link his
utilize
Instagram
both.
below, guys. If you guys want to reach out to him, I'll have his Instagram. Also, Cody's Instagram will be below, so make sure to give him a follow too.
Yeah. I think the last picture on there was like 4 years ago. But if you got any questions, I'm not a guru by any means. I don't pretend that I know everything. But what I do know is, when I first started, and as I've been learning, everything I learned was from the kindness of other people who do this sort of thing. And I want to be able to give back as much as I received. I just want to be able to help people. That's all I want to do when it comes to this sort of stuff. And again, I probably could have explained things better. And if you have any questions about it on my side, please hit me up, because I like to help. I like to help you guys.
100%. Well, thanks for coming on, brother. That was amazing. Any tips for people out there who are maybe just starting out, or they're getting a little results?
Just dig, man. Just dig into it. You're not going to have anything happen until you start. I'm sure Scout IQ probably still does the free trial, right? Do they offer the free trial? Get it, man.
I'll link all that below. I'll link Palette IQ, Scout IQ, everything will be linked below, guys.
If you're the kind of person where you're able to sit here and watch this video, and you're able to sit here and watch this, what we're at, like almost an hour now, you can go through and spend the same amount of time you spent listening to us gibber on, and see how much money you could have pulled out of a thrift store. It's steps. It's one little step at a time. Don't go through and try and be like, okay, I'm going to do exactly what Cody does or exactly what Romer does. Start just finding books and sending them in, and learn. You're going to make mistakes. It's a part of it. You're still going to make money. Just go out and make the effort. Like the little short video. You have to make the effort for there to be something to move forward to.
Yeah.
You have to just scale it. Start somewhere.
Yeah.
Don't go down YouTube for 12 hours and be like, I don't know, I'm not learning. You got to do something to.
And if you're going to do that, this is what I would do. Just go in the thrift store, put some headphones on, and scan, and then you can binge listen to drop shipping videos, to private label videos, to book selling, online arbitrage, wholesale, whatever you're interested in. Audiobooks, whatever you're interested in, just put it on You don't even need a scanner these days, dude. You can just start with Scout IQ speed mode. Dude, literally, I personally think that that's faster than using a scanner. And you just use your if you have a camera on your phone, everybody does. Just go it's so fast, man. Like
What I
it's
was
incredible.
actually going to make mention of is I've had this since I first started.
Mm-hmm.
This is the eYoYo ring scanner, and this
Yep.
is freaking amazing. When you get the, I think it's like $70 on Amazon or something like that.
Yep.
You want to
Yep.
get the one with the yellow button. That's important because the other one sucks. But the beautiful part about it is you're able to flip through books and scan. Like you can
Yeah.
press the button while you're doing it. And if you want to be if you don't want people to ask you questions, flip it on the palm of your hand and
Yeah.
just
People who
scan
love
like
those
that.
scanners, they love those scanners. People are obsessed with
It,
those.
I
My story with that, I apologize to eYoYo for this. They sent me one a few years ago, and they wanted me to make a YouTube video. And
yeah.
so I guess this is my YouTube video promoting them.
Hey, there we
I,
go.
I never did it because I never got around to it, and I felt bad. But I was in Cuba, and I had that on me. And for some reason, I ate pork, which I got food poisoning from. But I paid for 2 plates of this pork, and this is literally karma. I couldn't pay for it. My credit card for some reason they didn't accept my debit card that I had at the time, and I'm in the airport. My flight's leaving in 10 minutes, and so I try to pay, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like I literally have to go right now, and they're like, don't worry about it, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I have to give you something. And the only thing I had was the eYoYo ring scanner from years ago in my camera bag. And so I pulled it out and I'm like, look, this is really cool, man. I was like, it's chévere. I was speaking in Spanish. I was like, mira, es por si quieres scan stuff. And then the guy's like, oh, cool. And like, I'm like, $60. It's $70. And I just handed it to him and ran away. So
That's
there's at
funny.
least one of those ring scanners down in Cuba right now.
That's great. Yeah, no, like this one, I mean, I bought a second one just because I wanted one to have in my shop, and one just to leave in my car. But I've had the same one for years, and it's
Mhm.
running just like the day I
Yeah.
bought it. So it's
Doesn't matter
one
how
of
you
those.
scan shit, guys. If you want the ring scanner, get the ring scanner. If you want the bulky eYoYo, get that. If you want to use your phone, personally, I've been using my phone recently. It's been fucking amazing. Just
Yeah,
go out there and fucking scan shit. That's the
yeah,
most
man.
important thing. If you guys are completely lost on where to get started, there's tons of free YouTube videos out there. Or go to starthumble.com. I'll link that course below too. That's my free step-by-step course teaching you how to sell books, use Scout IQ, all that stuff. You guys can get started literally for free if you just use the free trials of the softwares we recommend. And honestly, you can get started with like little to no software. Just go out there, hustle, find some books, send them to Amazon, and get paid.
Yeah,
So
man.
thanks so much for coming on,
Exactly.
brother. And guys, go give him a follow for all this free value that he gave us on Instagram. His Instagram will be linked below. And thanks, Cody. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it, brother. Anytime.
All right, man.